We can take what we know from science and studies and all like the really cool stuff that we've learned and say that, cool, this works this way. And then we can take what people have been doing for 20, 30, 40 years that we've seen working, and we can stop pretending that it doesn't work just because it's not proven in a study, and we can mesh these two things together. My name is Drew Donaldson, and I've been a human performance coach for 20 years. And I've worked with every single walk of life. I've worked with bodybuilders, I've worked with powerlifters, I've worked with strongmen, I've worked with professional athletes, and most importantly, I've worked with normal people. People that just want to be gym bros, people that just want to be optimal human beings, whatever that might mean. I've worked with people that need to run multi-million-dollar corporations. I've worked with everything in between. And everybody that works with me, they have one thing in common. They love to train. But the problem is, most people are super confused by what's on the internet today. Because what's on the internet is telling you that this is the only way to train, or this is the only way to train. If you want to build muscle, this is the only way to train. So today, I'm going to talk about a way to train that's going to be applicable for everybody. Now, that doesn't mean it's a specialty phase of training. So if you're a bodybuilder trying to maximize hypertrophy or preserve muscle during an extreme hypocaloric phase, it might not be for you right now. Likewise, if you're a powerlifter trying to get as strong as humanly possible for a specific meet, it might not be for you right now. But if you want to be super jacked and have fun in the gym, but you also have a ton of other shit going on in your life, this might be perfect for you, because we can take what we know from science and studies and all like the really cool stuff that we've learned and say that, cool, this works this way. And then we can take what people have been doing for 20, 30, 40 years that we've seen working, and we can stop pretending that it doesn't work just because it's not proven in a study, and we can mesh these two things together. So I'm going to give you guys an example of an upper body day to maximize either hypertrophy or the preservation of muscle, depending on what your caloric intake is like and what your goals are, and how we can make it fun, how we can hit it from all the fancy angles, but keep all the meat and potatoes, the stuff that you know works, keep that stuff in there as well. You don't have to marry science-based, whatever the fuck that is, or bro stuff, whatever the fuck that is. You just want to be able to train in a way that's conducive to getting results, that's fun, that keeps you motivated, and at the end of the day, leaves you looking pretty jacked, right? First, what I like to do is I like to map out what I'm going to do. So today I'm in the amazing facility here at elitefts. So I'm not used to training at this gym. So obviously I'm going to walk around. I'm going to map out what we have available to work with, but I'm always going to follow the same parameters. So keep in mind, this isn't the best way to train. This is a good option if it fits your goals. My primary goals are to beat the crap out of the muscles in my upper body in a way that makes sense. So that means, in my opinion, I'm going to hit 3 back movements, I'm going to hit 3 chest movements. I'm going to warm up only as much as I need to warm up to stay safe and be ready to rock and roll for my main sets. I want to get a little bit of norepinephrine running. I want to get my brain ready. So I'm probably going to start in most cases with a little bit of cardiovascular work. I prefer to do 6 minutes at a low pace, something parasympathetic, just get my blood moving a little bit, get my heart beating a little bit faster. Then I like to do 6 minutes of something like assault bike sprints or just something to really get the norepinephrine flowing, get me waking up and get me ready to rock and roll. From there, I'm going to start building my workout in terms of the actual architecture of the actual workout. So I mentioned before, the primary meat and potatoes of this training session are going to be 3 movements for back and 3 movements for chest. I'm going to alternate those, not necessarily in traditional supersets, but what I like to do is a zigzag set. So zigzag sets, I know people have spoken about on this platform before, but just to refresh, it's essentially a superset with rest in between. Now, will this take away from your ability to create maximum tension in every single set that you do? Absolutely. And even though we know mechanical tension is probably the primary driver of hypertrophy, it's not the only lever that we're pulling today. So if we're losing a little bit of intensity to get a little bit more volume in a training setting where we only have 3 to 4 days a week to do this, and we're just trying to maximize muscle in terms of just getting a good pump, getting a little bit of hypertrophy, looking good on the beach, getting more jacked, whatever it might be, without that specialty niche goal of trying to be the best in the world in one component, it, this, in my opinion, is the best way to structure it. So I'm gonna start with a back movement, and when I start with any movement, I like to go free weights first. Now, a lot of people have heard that before, and a lot of people have a lot of different reasons why. For me, it's because the free weights aren't gonna confine me into one locked in position where I'm only moving in the positioning that the machine is gonna have the constraints to make me move. I want to have to lock down internally. I want to have to produce a bunch of co-contraction where all the other muscles in my body have to work to lock down in somewhat of an isometric position to keep my body from moving out of alignment and ruining my form. This is basically lubing the wheel, so to speak, to get everything rocking and rolling. And also it makes sure that I'm gonna get free weight movements in, and I'm not gonna be too lazy to actually do them later in the workout. So we're gonna start with a single arm dumbbell row, or in this case, kettlebell row for back. Now, if you wanna specify this for your lat, you can think more about getting a good protraction at the shoulder and driving that elbow back, almost like a pullover, because your lat is pulling that arm down and into the body. Whereas if you wanna specialize it more for your upper back, you can think knuckles forward, twist, come up, retract at the scapula, pull like you're pulling those shoulder blades together, big chest, and really squeeze the muscles in your traps and get a lot of trap and teres involvement as well. For what I want to do for this workout, I'm not gonna hyper focus on either one of those things. Now, I know that's fucking blasphemy right now in the training culture of optimizing everything, but I wanna lift with good form and I wanna utilize all the muscles in my back. I wanna make sure that I'm driving my elbow back so I'm working the lat, but I also wanna make sure that I'm squeezing at the top and I'm working all the musculature there, because my goal today is maximum efficiency, not necessarily specification in the minutia details of the muscles that I'm hitting. All right, so this workout is purposefully very glycolytic, meaning that the rest times are going to be a little bit shorter because I want to create a tremendous demand for the utilization of muscular glycogen. This is going to mean on the surface level, more gnarly pumps, but what it's really going to mean is that I'm burning through available glucose, and this will create a nutrient partitioning effect if it matches up with my diet in the perfect way. Just meaning that if I have adequate carbohydrate, but I'm not in too much of a caloric surplus, I can actually utilize this as a style of metabolic training, which can actually help me get leaner, as well as producing some really gnarly results for hypertrophy. Now, it's really hard to get big and lean at the same time, especially if there's no PEDs involved, so you can really cater this one way or the other to get the best results imaginable. I'm not saying that you're gonna put on a ton of muscle and get really lean at the exact same time, but training in this fashion or in this regard can help change how your body stores substrate, which will change what you visually look like, as well as drive your conditioning and performance. So for my second movement for each muscle group, I want to go into a machine now because I've already done my free weight movement and I can get right into my working set. Now with the machine, I can introduce a little bit more specificity. So today, since I already did the back row, since I already did the dumbbell rows, or in this case, the kettlebell rows for my back, and I did it in a way that just kind of lit up my entire back, upper back, traps, lats, and everything, I want to use my machine movement to be a little bit more specified to my lat. And that's just my preference. You can do whatever you want. Now with this set, since it isn't a machine, this is where I'd like to apply an intensifier. You can do a cluster set, some form of rest pause, you can do a drop set. Since we have the machine and we have the external apparatus here that's giving us external stability, we can put a little bit more oomph into it by doing some cool shit. Now, some people will argue this is driving too much fatigue. Remember, this is a relatively short workout and our frequency really isn't high if we're doing this type of workout to begin with. Now again, with this movement, I wanted to bias my lat a little bit more, so I just changed my setup in the machine. Before I mentioned to bias the lat, you want to think more about depressing the shoulder, protracting the shoulder, and then driving the upper arm down and into the body. I can't exactly do that on a machine like this, even though this is an awesome machine for hitting your upper back. If I just change my setup though, I can cater how the machine moves to how I want to hit my muscle specifically. So just keep in mind, based on whatever machine that you're using, it might actually change the resistance profile if you change your setup. On a row machine like this, the further back I pull that handle and the closer that weight gets to being above the pivot point here, there's going to be a drop off in tension. So this is actually getting lighter when I'm really contracting. But I look at it like it's heavier when I'm more lengthened, closer to the mid-range of the lat, where I'm the strongest. So this lets me focus a lot of tension right here, since in the standing version, I'm further back, and this has to travel further back towards me. The second movement for each muscle, and in this case, remember, each muscle is going to be chest and back. We want to go into something that's going to have external support, so a machine, something that's externally stabilized. It's not solely relying on your setup and you maintaining your exact positioning. That's what external stabilization really is. And we want to add some sort of intensifier to it at the end. Now, I went on the back portion of this workout from the from the single arm kettlebell rows into the single arm lat focused machine rows. Now, in the machine row, I could have done that rest pause set. I could have done a drop set. I could have done any sort of intensifier to get a little bit more bang for my buck. Now I'm going to move on to my machine movement for chest, and I'm going to use the Pec Dec fly, but I'm going to modify this one just like I modified that one. Now again, with the free weights, I started with the kettlebell row that kind of hit everything in my back in the shortened range, and then I hit the incline dumbbell press. That one was lighting up the sternal fibers and the clavicular fibers of my chest, along with some anterior delt as well. Now, what I want to do for this movement is I'm going to target the costal fibers of my pec, those big fibers that run downward. So how do we do this in a Pec Dec? I'm just going to change my angle. If I scoot my butt forward in the seat and lean back and just maintain proper bracing at my core with my chest up, I'll actually be moving in more of a decline fashion, and I'll hit those fibers a little bit more directly than I would otherwise. Now, if you're doing a Pec Dec fly and you want to add a really cool intensifier, one of my favorites involves holding what's somewhat of a lengthened isometric contraction on one side while the other side is working unilaterally. I know that sounds kind of random and off the wall, but if I maintain the lengthened position, keeping tension on one side while I do reps with the other side, and then switch, it's intense, it burns, and it gets you a ton of output in a short amount of time. So for the third and final movement for each of the muscles that we're primarily training today, chest and back, we want to pick something that it can be stabilized or it can be a little less stabilized, meaning it can be a machine, it can be a cable, it can even be a free weight. I just don't want it to be anything that requires a ton of actual skill. Now by skill, I mean something, an extreme example of which being a single leg RDL, something where you have to really go through a mental checklist to make sure that everything is locked down and you're executing it perfectly. I want the final exercise to be something that you can just kind of grip it and rip it. Now, I'm not against going a little bit higher rep in this one, and I know higher reps aren't really correlated with better pumps to be correlated with better muscle building. You can make the argument for sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. I'm not trying to overcomplicate this. I'm just saying that in my opinion, in this style of workout, the last movement that you do for each body part should be fun. Again, grip it and rip it. Get a gnarly pump. Finish by flushing as much blood into that muscle as humanly possible, and just make it make sense for the rest of the workout. Now for back, I started with that single arm kettlebell row. I really hit all of the musculature of my back in that one, primarily in the shortened position. Then I hit the lat in the mid-range with a modified machine row single arm. So I'm going to continue on that trend, isolating the lat, unilaterally, but I'm gonna focus on the lengthened position by modifying my lat pull down in the sagittal plane, meaning elbow in front, shoulder protracted, pulling that arm down and into the body. Now, if you don't have a cable setup with dueling cables and you have the more traditional setup with one, I like to sit off to the side a little bit so I can still focus on pulling that arm down and into my body. Now again, this final movement should be fun. It should be something that you feel. It should be something that pumps a ton of blood into the muscle. Again, I'm not preaching sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. I'm not preaching pumping nutrients into the muscle. Yes, those are things, and yes, those things may be happening, but I look at it like this. I hit the muscles really hard with free weight movements. I hit them really hard with intensifiers in more constrained, externally stabilized, machine-based movements. I'm already pretty fatigued, and I know I said don't fear fatigue, but we still have to respect it. So I want this final thing to be something fun, something I can do with minimal skill, and something that I feel to end the workout on a positive note. Final movement for chest, and again, the final movement for every body part that we're doing in this style of workout should be something that's just fun, minimum skill acquisition, and something that we can just push a ton of reps on, not necessarily like 20, 30, or 40 reps, but just something that we can get some really good, really high quality sets, push a lot of blood into the muscle, and again, have fun doing it. We're trying to end the workout on a positive note. For me, this would normally be something like throwing a bunch of chains over my back and just doing push-ups to failure, maybe dumping the chains off, doing push-ups to failure with just my body weight. But I love this piece. I've always seen it in all of these videos. I gotta give it a shot. And with standing chest presses, I've always had a really cool mind-muscle connection. I always really feel it. So this is something I gotta try while I'm here. Fuck, I love that. Awesome. So again, guys, in review, if you want an expedited, glycolytic, gnarly pump and a really effective upper body day when you only have a little bit of time and you only have a little bit of availability during the week, we're talking 3, maybe 4 chances to train during the week. This, in my opinion, is a great way to set up your training. You can do upper, lower, upper. You can do lower, upper, lower. You can set it up however you want, as long as it makes sense.